naive me thought that, oh well, there couldn't be much more to this. Right? Right? This video is a supplementary video to this one about James Somerton. It will be best to watch this one first as I cover every aspect of both of his apology videos and also analyze him as a person. But you could always watch this video first if you like. Anyways, welcome to Apologies from the Grave Extras, where we analyze a creator through their apology videos. And today I'm talking about everything that I didn't manage to say about James Somerton. Obviously, I still can't ensure that I have covered every aspect of him from the viewpoint of his apology videos alone, but I tried my best, and this will hopefully be the last time I ever cover him. A quick reminder on who James Somerton is. James Somerton is a cis white gay content creator that does video essays on media or anything in general through a LGBTQ lens. However, he has bombed his own career and channel when Hbomberguy made an extensive part of his very long video on plagiarism about him, as well as ToddintheShadows, who also made a very long video debunking his wild and frankly absurd statements. Anyways, now that everyone is on the same page, let's get into it.
Holy Jesus. What is that? What the fuck is that?
This is an aspect that he mentions somewhat repeatedly about his misinformation, which is on asexuality. A small part of his second video is about this particular issue, which makes you think, what exactly did he say that he needed to personally pick up this part to apologize for? Well, since his channel no longer exists, the only information I could dig up on is a Twitter thread made by the Ace couple, who also made a podcast episode talking about him, but I will be using their Twitter post as a pointer. However, let me quickly bring up this viewer that left this comment on the video. Both he and Nick, despite Nick being ace himself, claim that being asexual is considered a mental disease, something that has been long debunked. So yeah, yikes all around. Now let's go back to the ace couple's Twitter thread. Basically, James scratched the surface of asexuality, and he said words like, well, there might be no specific persecution for asexual people in the way that gay people have faced, and while there isn't really any conversion therapy directed at asexuals, as the ace couple points out, that it's fake. And that the asexual people are generally more marginalized by society compared to the rest of the queer community. This is especially true in James Somerton's case, but I will round up the entire thing about how he doesn't really care about others in his community in the final parts of the video. Going back on topic, the ace couple goes on to mention that gender and sexual diversity is far more common in the autistic community than it is for our allistic counterparts, as this older article has stated. And as mentioned by the ace couple, due to heavy medicalization and pathologization of our orientation and due to good old-fashioned ableism, the ace community is really quick to distance from any kind of diagnosis, and this harms disabled and neurodivergent aces who also deserve meaningful rep. Though, knowing what I know now, him stating that he doesn't believe in the words that he said in his videos makes this even more funny. Can you be technically wrong about what facts could be? Yeah, actually. Kazakh, despite their strongly mixed, and I guess, reputation, did make this very interesting and very informative video about this little nugget of fact, which is that the total length of your blood cells are 100,000 kilometers long, and you can wrap it around the Earth twice with that length. However, they basically went down a deep rabbit hole to find the source, and this fun fact isn't actually true at all. So it's totally okay to be wrong about certain things, because most people won't even realize that it's false. Or it has been said for so long that we always thought of it to be true, and yet it isn't. But considering his general track record, I would say that it's pretty stupid of you to give him the benefit of the doubt, and he uses Nick as a very obvious shield even when he says that he isn't throwing Nick under the bus. But like I said in the video, the issue. When you use someone else as a pointer for the opinions you make, especially something as complex and intimate as sexuality, you're basically telling everyone that, hey, if I say anything bad, it's because of them. It doesn't matter whether or not you intend to, it gives others that impression. Dispersion. Moving on to the next point.
I hate ace people and women and bisexual people and lesbians, and that's not true.
About his misogyny, he has technically apologized for his misogyny, though his exact terms were, "I don't hate women," which, well, is just one part of misogyny, as defined by Merriam-Webster: hatred of, aversion to, or prejudice against women. Though if you didn't know the context, his words would have been fine, but if you did, then it's kind of funny. I also assume that he's apologizing for his misogyny under the blanket term of misinformation, which I doubt that misogyny can just be referred to as "I made an oopsie," since generally speaking, misogyny is basically more of a belief and actions thing than just pure fact. But he frames a lot of things as misinformation because it's an easier hill for him to die on than for him to admit that he hates women. There is also a very manipulative reason why he's labeling it under misinformation. Again, let me show you one part of it from Hbomberguy's video, and pay close attention to the way that it's framed.
Navigating the ethics of true crime content is tricky. Critics have begun to question the need for entertainment mediums which fetishize or even sexualize serial killers. In the last 3 years alone, we've seen multiple films about Ted Bundy, with 2 of them coming from Netflix, one of them starring Zac Efron. A whole new generation of girls fell head over heels for the infamous killer, which was a grim remake in itself of the real-life Ted Bundy trial. He had fangirls defending him in the press and even begging to marry him. Netflix's social media team actually begged viewers to stop standing Bundy.
The reason why he could technically get away with labeling his misogyny as misinformation is because in this particular context, he frames it as kind of a fact. Because like Hbomberguy clarified, while he isn't wrong per se, the reason why girls were swooning over Ted Bundy was because of Zac Efron and not because of the serial killer. Since you know, it's a Netflix series he is talking about. But even outside of that context, sometimes he just says these kinds of things.
Why don't gay men get to represent themselves in media? At least media that's widely accepted by the mainstream. Queer women get to represent themselves, at least sometimes. Look at animated hits like Steven Universe or She-Ra and the Princesses of Power.
Indy Stevenson and Rebecca Sugar are trans-masculine and non-binary respectively, but for the purposes of James's point, they count as women.
And it makes you wonder, like, what the hell did women do to you, James? Why this kind of passionate hatred?
Unfortunately, to this day, many women still see gay men as nothing more than a fancy accessory, especially teenage girls who lust for the perfect gay best friend. A boy whose sex life is secret, so you never have to hear about it. But he's always there to tell you if your boyfriend's being a jerk. Gay men and boys as a purse or a fancy iPhone case. Something to show off, but ultimately, something disposable.
I feel like this part is entirely personal. I swear that this has probably happened to him before or something.
Attractive Germans marching down the streets of Berlin in newsreels created an air of inferiority for many, especially in America, which in no small amount contributed to the massive sign-ups when America joined the war.
So, while I was researching for extra info and trying to get whatever I could get my hands on, I found this Reddit post. Let me break this down into bisexual people as well as the Nazis thing. So this Reddit post mentioned that on a video about video games, apparently he said something about how overrepresented bisexuals are in video games and how awful that is, how gay people are being erased, and then he says something condescending about straight people with the smug look of Count Dooku. Sorry, who is Count Dooku? You know what? I see the resemblance. Anyways, the Redditor says something that I do kinda agree with. Something about how being able to date both genders is more of a player sexual thing than actually bi. Also that bis are generally poorly represented in media. The one that immediately comes to my mind, because I became a casual Batman fan because of Jason Todd, is how Tim's bisexuality was first shown. And oh, it was bad. And lastly, that James apparently had the same old rhetoric of why people don't get discriminated against because they can just bang a chick and drink a beer. Considering that this is James we're talking about, that sounds like something he would definitely say. So, the Nazi stuff, or whatever shit he said about them, actually exists in some snippets. In ToddintheShadows video, these are the chapters where James Somerton's views on Nazis and the stuff adjacent to Nazis are brought up. I will focus on this one since it's the most moment I had.
See buffness.
As the globe suffered from malnutrition due to the food shortages of the Great Depression, or fattened up because the only food readily available was nutrient poor and extremely high in carbs, seeing these svelte, attractive Germans marching down the streets of Berlin in newsreels created an air of inferiority for many, especially in America, which in no small amount contributed to the massive sign-ups when America joined the war. Remember, America was attacked by Japan, not Germany, but American boys across the country signed up to fight in Europe. They had to show these perfect Germans that they weren't so tough.
I am wary of claiming things are wrong if I don't have that one killer fact that disproves it right in front of me, and I don't here. I'm gonna risk it and say it anyway. Bullshit. They were even more jealous when they saw the Germans in person.
How did this come about? Well, soldiers coming home from World War II had seen the ridiculous bodies of Nazi soldiers and Nazi propaganda, and the mythical bodies that Nazis held up as perfection, and thought, oh, I can do better than that. And so a small subsect began trying to attain these bodies.
What the fuck are you talking about? I mean, this just doesn't make any sense.
I'm with you on this one, Todd. I do not know why he said that, or he said it with such confidence. But also does it not cross his mind that people enlist because they want to fight for their country? Or well, sometimes just forced into enlistment? Also, if you are talking about this kind of hyper muscular physique, isn't it been like a thing since the Romans or something? Actually, let me Google this. Okay, we aren't going to get into that because this is way too convoluted, but basically it's been a thing for a long while now and Nazis didn't really popularize it or something. Also, soldiers would have to be fit, so they would just naturally develop this kind of physique if food isn't an issue. And food was an issue for the Nazis in later parts of the wars. So, I would also like to bring up this comment since in his first apology video, he brought up the fact that he posted some video over on Patreon and he was glad that it never left Patreon. The commenter mentioned that apparently said video he was referencing was actually a written apology, where he tried to dismiss the plagiarism claims made about him by Hbomberguy. I did a little bit of digging and found this old post on the Hbomberguy subreddit. This was posted on Twitter, so the link to the thread, as always, is in the description box. Since we are here, let's go on a quick detour. The post reads, "Firstly, I would like to thank all of you for supporting me in the first place. However, it seems like as if this channel has come under target from a significantly larger creator than myself and Nick. I know the majority of you were around last year when these accusations were first brought up. I have spoken to many of you privately and in live streams to explain the situation in detail. I am shocked to see that I was worth similarly 2 hours of a 4-hour video, especially when all of these issues have been discussed before a year ago today." I feel like you can tell at this point that he actually has not watched the video when he made this post, considering how much new stuff Hbomberguy dug up about him, especially since there was nothing new brought up in this video. Yep, he has not watched it. If you have any concerns about these issues, please message me and I'll answer all of your questions in detail. Again, I'm so grateful for your support. I love you all and thank you. And the rest of the screenshots are comments, which can be divided into people who still supported him and people who are disappointed. And Tim Pitman in particular seems to be rather angry that their Discord messages are being used in the video. Like, why? I'm just like genuinely just curious. Also, they said this later, and for a person who was hate watching the video, yeah, they most definitely agree with Hbomberguy, but hasn't yet lost all faith in James. I wonder how they feel after these 2 apology videos and then James just bombing his channel. But this does remind me a lot of this woman. I have just finished recording my reaction video to apology and debunk video, so I see a lot of shadows of the same kind of tactics. It's very obvious that James really thought that he could just sweep it under the rug like he did all the other times. But Hbomberguy and ToddintheShadows were just too damning, and his career is basically dead. He also posted this before his Patreon was shut down, which I presume that he uploaded this video sometime after, or well, maybe it was before, I'm not very sure on the timing. Also to add, one of the Redditors in the comments mentioned Dan Olsen, the creator of the Folding Ideas channel, made this comment. This is really important since for this video in particular, he mentions a lot about struggling for money and how expensive it was staying in Ontario, stuff like that. And he did bring up in the second apology video that he wasn't really making as much money as people were thinking since he was splitting the money 50-50 with Nick. Also that he did crowdfund for his indie film studio, Telos. Basically, financial pressure was one of the reasons why he posts videos that are well less researched and some videos will rush out of the door. As he claims anyways. So money was definitely something that he talked about extensively. Dan made a thread back on December 5th, 2023, talking about his involvement with the Hbomberguy video since he was asked to fact check on the things James said about indie filmmaking in Canada, since Dan has experience. Anyways, hold up a second. What the fuck? Let me just add that to the list of things that he said. I'm reading through the tweets as I'm writing the script, so when this popped out, I wasn't really surprised, but like, how bad can this go? As it turns out, I'm quite bad. Okay, so TLDR, this entire tweet is basically a full explanation for this comment he made on the first apology video. Basically, he noticed that James had a very expensive camera as a prop in the background. I'm assuming that it's this one. And like Dan said, you usually won't have such an expensive prop unless you have a more expensive camera. Dan talks about newbie filmmakers buying insanely good gear because they think it's what they need. He calls it gear acquisition syndrome or gas. And he also says this, which for some reason is just funny to me. He's so visceral about it that it makes me curious how bad the room is. I would love to see it, but obviously it doesn't exist anymore. Basically, James tends to claim that his videos keep getting demonetized and whatnot. Then he humble brags during mid-March that he needs to work on 6 videos because he overworked on sponsors. He had also stated this as a reason for why he rushed out videos. And then this statement, which is very funny but a huge indicator of what kind of shit is going through that head of his. And then this. I agree with Dan here that we usually blame the platform if something happens to the payout. Most people wouldn't do what James did, and yeah. So at the time he was still being roasted for the steak, and you know what he did when he gained 1,200 new Patreons after basically guilt-tripping his audience? He bought a new fucking camera for 8,000 Canadian dollars despite saying that his channel was about to die off due to money issues. Holy shit! Now I know why he loves saying take the money and run. Dan estimated that his Patreon earnings by the end of the post was in the ballpark of $10,000, and adding YouTube income, he's spent the last 7 months making around $18,000 per month. USD, by the way, Dan clarified. I'm not sure if sponsors are counted, probably not. That means that he's making more than that. Every time I think that this can't get worse, it does. This is supposed to be a short video. I've already written like 2.5k from all the new info. This was supposed to be a short video!
Are you kidding me? What do you mean raw observation?
This was an oversight on my side, since I was mostly using Hbomberguy's video as a reference and not really Todd's. Someone in the comments brought up a theory that Nick isn't real. Unfortunately, Nick is real. Both ToddintheShadows and Hbomberguy showed what Nick looked like, and if you search up the name on Book Life, Nick is here. And there's a little excerpt that reads, "When not writing fiction, he is a video essay writer, photographer, graphic designer, bad player of video games, tree connoisseur, animal tweeter, and and most importantly, an avid daydreamer. This is his book that Hbomberguy referenced. So, in ToddintheShadows video, he showcased screenshots of some things that Nick said since he was in their Discord, and
Informed there's some misleading information presented in the Fat Nazis video. Ooh, do tell. We could have done more to elaborate on points regarding the fitness movement leading up to the Nazis' spin cycle culture. Weimar, that's not how you spell Weimar. Weimar did have a large fitness campaign that the Nazis sprung off of, I'm told. Okay, that's just nothing. You condense the narrative. I'm not going to complain about that, and you can't cover everything. However, the association between the Americas co-opting Nazis' fitness ideology is based on observation. The J-Shark, that's James. Perhaps in the future, we could do more to use language that would highlight what is an observational claim. An observational claim? What does that mean?
he also says this.
A lot of the claims, at least that I make, are kinda based on just raw observation. I'm kinda fucking lazy and don't want to look things up, so I just kinda take something and ruminate on it. Are you kidding me?
And he also said these things before the Discord was nuked. Okay, I've seen some people say that this is a joke, which it could be, but considering he said this before, I don't really think that you could take it as a joke. Also, plagiarism is an issue in academia, and Nick has written a book, so he must know that he probably shouldn't be making jokes like these in this situation. Hbomberguy really was too kind to him. Obviously, you can't say that Nick is involved in plagiarism, but considering Nick said that the association between the Americans co-opting Nazis' fitness is based on an observation, which means that they couldn't find anything, is he aware that everything that is presented in the videos are seen as a fact? And also this one is particularly damning. Here's a reminder of what James said in his second apology video when asexuality was brought up.
Nick being ace, I know it's kind of like, you know, no two gay people are exactly the same and no two ace people are exactly the same, but I kind of, when it came to that, I would just kind of run with Nick's judgment and his observations and stuff like that.
Considering what the ace couple had said about the video James had made about asexual people and some of the more harmful rhetoric, actually James is being honest in this one, at least in this case. It doesn't make it any better, by the way, it just makes it worse. I legit thought that this was going to be a quick, short add-on video. But the more I started to dig, the more I found, and the more I found, the worse the situation became. I went too easy on him in the original video, I'm not gonna lie. His apology video is a lot like Illuminati's, where because a lot of what they said spanned across a very long time, it's very easy to get lost in the sea of information. But then again, even if you know nothing about what exactly they are apologizing for, a lot of things they say just don't feel right. If you're sensitive enough to notice. They are both very smart in the ways they present themselves as the victim, but the particular reason why James Somerton feels more fake than Illuminati or Blair is because he doesn't do a good enough job to package himself as a victim. Especially to his fans, he says a lot of nothing. Blair did directly apologize to everyone involved, but she spins her story in a much better way that's much more subtle. James, however, is very bad at it. The much more direct reason being is how he used Nick's involvement to cover himself, and he isn't as subtle about it as Blair is. And most importantly, he tries way too hard, and that's what causes his excuses to backfire. But moving aside, there's a particular comment that I agree with. He really does not care for others outside of his own labels. Considering the shit that he says, and especially about the Nazis thing, you can tell that for whatever weird reason, he's trying to prop up gays on a pedestal. Just like for some reason the gays are more oppressed than everyone else. I don't know what he went through in life, but I can almost say that he probably has something like gay supremacy, if I'm using the word right. Before we end my suffering, there is a very important thing I want to talk about. The particular reason why James Somerton uses misinformation as an excuse for everything he has said in his video is because he's a video essayist. He can very conveniently say that, hey, it's just that I've gotten the wrong facts. because he can frame any problematic views he has on the fact that he's a video essayist. That includes his misogyny, his weird Nazi fetish, and whatever else he has said. He can use his role as a video essayist as a shield. I've mentioned particularly in this video that anything you present to the audience is something that you believe in, because everyone views any and all information through a specific set of lens that's unique to them, and you can force a specific result because completely conflicting or even false results exist. And most importantly, the audience trusts that whatever you say is right. There is this very old skit by Dropout, formerly known as College Humor, and I think that it perfectly summarizes what I'm trying to convey.
Vaccines cause autism?
Well, I have 1 million results that say they don't, and 1 result that says they do.
I knew it.
Just because I have it doesn't mean it's true!
So even if they did do research, they can still force a specific narrative in their videos because they could. And generally speaking, unless they are very overt with it, you won't really notice. Especially for the serial killer example, because when we think of crazy fans or people lusting for serial killers, most of us will default to women, even if we don't know the full story. That's why he phrases everything he says, even if they came from him or Nick, as a matter of fact. When he labels himself as a mistaken intellectual instead of a shitty man, he can write anything off as him making a mistake as a video essayist. It's a brilliant way to divert attention. If it works, that is. It's what he's trying to frame himself as when he posted this to his Patreon, that he's being bullied by someone much larger, that it's something that he talked about before, and Hbomberguy is just blowing it out of proportions. Since he did have previous experience with plagiarism accusations, this would work if the content creator was a smaller creator. But unfortunately for him, it was Hbomberguy, and he has been on the platform for over a decade now. I can now end my suffering with 3.6k words. Holy shit! This is Amelia from the Cat is Bored channel, and I'll see you next time.